I thank my honourable friend for her question. Hospitality businesses are the cornerstone of our communities, Mr. Speaker, providing life and vibrancy to high streets up and down the country. And the government is committed to continuing to support their growth and their success. We really value both the work that employees in that sector do. I believe there are around 2 million people who work in hospitality across the country, Mr. Speaker, and the work of the business owners who are seeking to grow and expand their hospitality businesses. And precisely because we value their work and the work of businesses on the high street, we fundamentally redesign the transitional relief scheme so that it takes as its jumping off point the 40% reduction in bills as a result of this government's decision to extend the pandemic-related relief, something that the previous government hadn't costed and hadn't funded, and it would have ended overnight if they had won the general election in 2024.
Harriet Baldwin.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. The problem is that the November Red Book said that the high street will benefit from permanently lower business rates for retail, hospitality and leisure. And yet the reality for businesses up and down the land is that this is something that they feel has been entirely misleading. We've now had briefing to the newspapers that there's going to be a change, but the Minister today is saying that that's not happening. He's saying that we need to be part of the normal processes, which I interpret as meaning next spring's statement. So can the Minister tell those businesses who are lying awake at night worried about these increases when some relief is actually on its way?
Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The changes at the budget did lead to a reduction in the tax rate paid by businesses on the high street as a result of the reforms that this government have brought in. We've been very clear about the need to start the work to rebalance the business rate system to support our high streets. And yes, it is the case that because the pandemic relief is being unwound over the course of the coming years, something that the previous government would have done overnight in 2025 if they'd have won the general election, and because of the increase in business rate values, because we're now coming out of the pandemic, there are some businesses seeing increases in their bills, and that's why we've capped those increases significantly this year and over the coming 3 years, providing £4 billion of support. And on the specific point in terms of updates in the usual way, it is of course possible, Mr. Speaker, for ministers to make statements in the House.
Toby Perkins.
Very much indeed, Mr. Speaker. My honourable friend's absolutely right to say that the party opposite has no credibility on this. Of course we know that if they had won the election, we either would have seen these increases quicker or the black hole would have been even bigger, would have been one or the other. But nonetheless, it is true that there are many pubs that are really concerned and are under the impression that further help is coming. So they are trying to make accounting decisions right now. Can he say any more about whether they are going to be seeing exactly the bills that they expect right now, or will further help be coming before April?
Minister.
I am grateful to my honourable friend for making the very important point that the previous government didn't have any plans to continue to extend the pandemic support. On his other question, I'm not going to comment today, Mr. Speaker, on the speculation. He and others can see the words that the Prime Minister and the Chancellor have said about this at this dispatch box and in various media interviews. I don't have more to say on that.
Bobby Dean.
Mr. Speaker, as already been mentioned, in the Labour manifesto they committed to reforming the business rate system, and in the Red Book for the budget they talked about permanently lower business rates for retail, hospitality and leisure. Now, if you're a business owner, that gives you the impression that your bills are going to be lower. And this get out about the rates being low when the government knew that the transitional reliefs were being phased out and that the rateable values were going up substantially is not cutting it for those businesses who made plans accordingly. Now, we heard on the Treasury Committee last week from the Valuation Office that the government knew for over a year about the size of the increase in rateable values. So why has this backlash taken the government by surprise?
Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As I have set out already today. The government was aware that there was a revaluation taking place. It was a revaluation that was initiated by the previous government, took account of property values in 2024 and will come into place from April of this year. We were also aware that it was right, and I believe members on all sides of the House would probably agree that by the end of the decade it wouldn't be appropriate to have the full pandemic relief in place almost 10 years on from the height of the pandemic. And in the round, as a result of those decisions, we came forward with a really significant package, Mr. Speaker, of £4.3 billion of protection for businesses across the country, large and small, high street and non-high street, in order to help them adjust to the potential for higher bills that some are experiencing. I would say too, it is the case, as I said in my opening remarks, that around half of businesses are seeing their business rates bills either flat or falling, Mr. Speaker.
Rachel Maskell.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. While pubs have a powerful lobby, the independents on our high street, whether cafes or retail outlets, don't. And I have been poring over the spreadsheets of the impact it's going to have on York. Some businesses seeing business rates rising by 93%, little retail outlets, and simply they don't have the resilience. So can the Minister set out what he's going to do for independents to ensure that they are going to survive past March this year?
Minister.
Mr. Speaker, York High Street and my honourable friend's constituency is a beautiful and wonderful place with lots of fantastic businesses. I used to work there for a time, and I know that members on all sides of the House really do value the businesses that keep their high streets both vibrant and thriving. And Mr. Speaker, we are taking steps, and we have taken steps at the budget to support high street businesses through our £4.3 billion of support, and we will continue to engage with members and with businesses on the steps we can take to continue to support our high street businesses.
Paul Holmes.
Mr. Speaker, the Minister's talking in numbers, but actually out there on the doorsteps and on the streets and the high streets, I've met a cafe owner and a publican whose businesses are busier than ever. They are selling more drinks and more food, and yet their top line is shrinking because of the decisions being made by this government. And indeed, one of my landladies was in tears with me about whether she should carry on directly because of the policies of this government. What advice would the Minister give her?
Minister.
I hope, Mr. Speaker, that the honourable member, and when he was in conversation with businesses in his constituency, would have explained that this year, for example, if a pub has a rateable value of less than £100,000, the policy as was set out of the budget would have capped those increases at a 15% increase. I think it is really important that members in this place do all they can to help business owners pick through the complexities of the business rate system. It is a complicated system. It has many different reliefs, and there's a difference both between the tax rates that are paid, the relief that is applied, and the rateable value of the property. Of course, it is the case that some businesses are seeing their rateable values increase as we unwind from the pandemic, but that's precisely why the government came forward with the package of support that it did at the budget.
Kim Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The hospitality and leisure sector in Liverpool is one of the largest employers and contributes quite significantly to the local economy. However, it is facing significant challenges at the moment, with the average hospitality business now facing an increase of over 48,000 in business rate over the next 3 years. Double the national average, and a serious threat to sustainability. And this is compounded by 20% VAT rate, one of the highest in Europe, compared with Germany, which has reinstated 7% to support its sector. So can the Minister explain what targeted support will be provided to safeguard jobs, prevent closures and redundancies in the hospitality and leisure sector in Liverpool? And will he come to Liverpool to speak to the business owners, please? Thank you.
Minister.
I like to make sure when I'm up for Labour Party conference to enjoy the pubs and the hospitality that is available in Liverpool. It is a fantastic and a vibrant city, and I know that the constituencies and the areas in the middle of the city have some of the highest number of pubs and hospitality businesses in the country, and she, like I, will really value those businesses, the work that the business owners do, and of course the work that the employees do, working what can be quite tough and demanding jobs. And precisely because we want to support hospitality, that is why the government at the budget redesigned the transitional relief scheme so that it applies with the 40% reduction as the baseline, rather than unwinding the support in full as the previous government would have done overnight. We also said at the budget that we'll be appointing a retail, hospitality and leisure envoy, and I look forward to that announcement in due course.
Can I just help a little bit? We're going to run this for an hour from the start, so 4:40. The Minister can help members get in. That will be really useful. Monica Harding.
Mr. Speaker, perhaps the Prime Minister on his much heralded cost of living tour might like to come and visit the pubs and cafes of my constituency in East Walton if they let him in, who are being squeezed to breaking point by this government, while constituents watch their wallets because of tax rises. Hospitality venues are the lifeblood of my high street and create the jobs we need for young people. So will the government act now by fully using business rates relief and introducing an emergency VAT cut for hospitality, protect jobs, pubs, restaurants and the lifeblood of my
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. One of the things that the government is doing to support businesses up and down the country is to bring back economic stability. We've had interest rates cut 6 times under this government, which will reduce borrowing costs for businesses small and large, and we're doing all we can to boost living standards, Mr. Speaker, so that people have got more money in their pockets to spend in hospitality businesses. We've seen faster increases in wages in the first year of this government than we did in the whole first 10 years under the Conservatives.
Chris Webb.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I do find it a bit rich from the party opposite to be raising this issue after around 7,000 pubs and bars closed under their watch. So it's very rich, and that is felt in places like Blackpool and across the country. But will the Minister continue to engage with the hospitality sector, for UK hospitality and other small businesses, to ensure that we get this right? Because many are struggling after 14 years of the party opposite, but especially after COVID, and we need to support our high streets that have been forgotten about for far too long.
Minister.
I thank my honourable friend for his question and for his engagement on this important issue and the work that he does on the APPG. And yes, the government will continue to engage with sector bodies like UK Hospitality and on this and other important matters that are important for the hospitality industry.
Mark Pritchard.
The Minister doesn't have to defect to reform to get a pint. And I'm very happy to show him round Shropshire pubs and all the pubs that are in the villages and in the market towns. And I'll show him that pubs are not just about having non-alcoholic and alcoholic drinks. They lie at the very heart, often, of village communities, where local charities, the WI, pensioner groups, whatever it might be, meet there because the post office is closed or the shop is closed. So can I genuinely invite the Minister to get out of London, get out of the Beltway, out of the bubble, come to Shropshire? He won't be allowed in, of course, but I can bring him a pint outside when the warmer weather comes. But genuinely, I've appealed to the Minister, join me in Shropshire and hear firsthand what pub landlords and owners have to say.
Last orders. Come on, Minister.
I don't quite know what the current government position is on whether or not pubs are allowed to have takeaway pints, but I would hope that they would be allowed in Shropshire if I were to visit. But in my constituency, Mr. Speaker, North London, I have around 30 pubs, and I have many conversations with publicans, both locally and in my role as Exchequer Secretary.
Todd Johnson, yes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I refer to my register of interest and my chairship of the APPG for beer. Will the Minister accept that pubs are anchor employers on our high streets, and will he please ask the Chancellor to expedite a package of rates relief and duty reduction aimed specifically at sustaining these really important jobs in hospitality?
Minister.
I would strongly agree with my honourable friend that pubs are important anchor institutions. I know that she cares deeply about the businesses in her constituency and is a strong representative for them. Under the previous government, we saw more than one pub closing every single day, 7,000 fewer pubs in our communities. This government will do all it can to continue to support publicans and those institutions that are a lifeblood of communities up and down the country.
Richard Tice.
Mr. Speaker, an absolute shambolic, chaotic furore around this business rates since the budget. When will the Minister do the right thing and confirm to the House exactly when we're going to get some clarity on these changes? And is he aware just how despairing businesses are in my constituency of Boston and Skegness and around the country because of the uncertainty, the increased costs? And is he aware that they're reducing opening hours, reducing employee hours, and will he do the decent thing and apologise?
Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I wasn't sure whether the what the honourable member was referring to when he said it was shambolic, chaotic, and there was a furore. It's probably his own party that wouldn't be able to run anything in any brewery, let alone a whole country, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Could I gently say to the Minister, when he says it's job of MPs to help publicans and hospitalities understand the system, they do understand. Their frustration doesn't come from not understanding the help but actually the system they're working in. And several things can be true at once. It is true that there is a permanently lower rate. It is true there is a £4 billion worth of package to soften the blow for those that have increased business rates. But it's also true that when that goes away, breweries like Titanic Brewery in Stoke-on-Trent will have an overall business rate increase of 130%, with some of their venues seeing 400% increases. So is the Minister able to set out what specific support they can look forward to in the next 3 years? Or can he give them clarity about what they need to budget for? Because as a result of these changes, some pubs will close around this country, and we need to avoid that.
Minister.
I would totally agree with my honourable friend that we do need to avoid the situation that we saw in the last 14 years, where we had 7,000 pubs closing under the Conservatives, around 4,000 closed in the first 5 years when the Lib Dems were in coalition with them. This government will do all we can to support pubs, hospitality and our high streets, Mr. Speaker. That is why we set out a really strong set of proposals at the budget, those that he mentions, including the £4.3 billion of support.
Sir Bernard Jack.
Mr. Speaker, when is a U-turn not a U-turn? And I would suggest it is when the government realises it's made a terrible mistake, briefs that it's going to change the policy, and then sends a minister to this House to explain that nothing's changing at all. Does he realise how much despair people are feeling? And this isn't a problem of a transition. This is a fundamental flaw in the whole concept of business rates that hits the smallest businesses the hardest. And what there needs to be is our policy, which is to leave this transition permanently in place, this rates relief permanently in place, until there is a new system that exempts the smaller businesses from this punitive tax.
Madam Deputy Speaker, the party opposite had 14 years to implement significant reforms to the business rate system. They could have changed the system with significant underlying reforms to mean that the tax rate paid by high street businesses was lower than the tax rate paid by the largest businesses, but they didn't. So I don't think we can trust a word they say when it comes to reform to the business rate system. They didn't take the opportunity when they had their chance. It's easy to say things. Instead, on this side of the government, we are getting on with doing the job of reforming and improving our business rate system.
Emma Lewell. Deputy Speaker, I want to thank my honourable friend for his engagement so far on this issue. It will come as no surprise to him that a cut to VAT and the maximum 20p discount for business rates applied across hospitality, not just pubs, is what is needed. Because nobody wants to drink in a pub surrounded by boarded up cafes, restaurants and B&Bs. Can I urge the government to act quickly and, as a gesture of their intent, withdraw the statutory instrument that enforces the much lower 5p business rate discounts this April?
I want to thank my honourable friend for her sustained and important engagement and advocacy, Madam Deputy Speaker, on behalf of the businesses in her constituency on the high streets, both hospitality, cafes, pubs and the independent shops. She has explained to me really clearly the impact various changes that previous governments and this government have announced on the businesses in her constituency, and I will continue to engage with her and other strong advocates of the hospitality industry on this and other important issues that affect our high streets.
Sarah Olney.
Thank you very much, Madam Deputy Speaker. This government has already imposed additional employment costs on our small and high street businesses, and they're still struggling with sky-high energy costs that the government have yet to alleviate. And now we have these massive increases in business rates. Is there anything at all that the Minister can say at the dispatch box today that will give hope to our small and medium businesses on our high streets that are wondering whether they can continue, or to our entrepreneurs who are wondering if they can get started?
Madam Deputy Speaker, this government backs small businesses and backs our high streets. We want to do all we can to continue to support businesses up and down this country, Madam Deputy Speaker. That's why we announced significant reforms to business rates at the budget, making sure that we could have a permanently lower multiplier for high street businesses, and providing significant support worth £4.3 billion over the coming 3 years.
Janet Derby.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Libraries and community centres are central to communities like mine in Lewisham, and they make an excellent contribution to the local areas. I'm wondering if the Minister can say if there are any planned changes to their business rates and how else they can be supported in our local community.
Minister.
I thank my honourable friend for her question. She is right to highlight the role that libraries and community centres in her constituency and across the country play in providing places for people to socialise, to learn new skills, to grow and develop. I think of the libraries that lots of parents in my constituency take their children to get their first books to read. The reforms to the business rate system that we set in place at the budget will protect any businesses or premises that are seeing large increases in their rateable values, Madam Deputy Speaker. But I'm always happy to have conversations with honourable friends on what other steps more broadly the government could take to support important institutions such as those that she raises.
Karen Bradley.
Thank you very much, Madam Deputy Speaker. We all look forward to whatever it is the government has decided to change here. But can I ask the Minister to look at 2 points? Can you first of all look at when appeals can be made to valuations? At the moment, they have to wait till 1st of April, and that simply isn't giving any confidence to the sector. And can I also ask him to look at wedding venues in particular, who suffered enormously during COVID and are likely, as things stand at the moment, not to benefit from any relief that he's going to announce in the next few weeks?
Minister.
I thank the honourable member for raising those points. Yet the process for businesses who are not satisfied with the valuation that was provided by the VO is to go through the check, challenge and appeal process. In my role as the Minister with responsibility for HMRC, I will of course be doing all I can to make sure that the performance of the VO is as good as it can be in terms of helping businesses get through that process. That is really very important, not least given we are seeing the rebound from the pandemic in terms of the values of many businesses across the country.
Kerry McCarthy.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I hope the Minister will join me in congratulating East Bristol's Lost and Grounded, which has just appeared in the Times' list of the 8 best breweries in Britain. He may recall that just before the budget, I brought another East Bristol brewery, Left-Handed Giant, to meet him and other ministers at number 11, where they made very clear the pressures that were facing the hospitality sector. Can he give me assurances that, as a first step, we need to sort out the revaluation shambles, but can he also make sure that the consideration of a differential rate of VAT, as we see in so many other countries on the continent, is also on the Treasury's radar?
I would, of course, like to join with her in congratulating the brewery in her constituency. I know in Bristol there is a vibrant, small and independent brewery sector, and lots of fantastic places where people can choose to have a drink if they so wish. Just the same as her, I want to make sure that this government does what it can to continue to support businesses like the one that she mentions and those operating up and down the country. One of the things that this government is seeking to do is to make sure that people have got more money in their pockets so they can go out and spend it. That's why I'm really glad that under the first year of this Labour government we saw faster increases in wages than we did in the whole first 10 years under the Conservatives.
John Whittingdale.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. As well as pubs, hotels and restaurants, is the Minister aware that many grassroots music venues, some of which have never been liable for rates, now face demands for thousands of pounds? The Music Venues Trust has said that these are not bills, they are closure notices. Will he ensure that grassroots music venues are included in any relief that he provides and are recognised as critical creative infrastructure?
Minister.
On the issue of businesses being brought into business rates for the first time, that was something that we considered before the budget, and we have set out at the budget this supporting small businesses scheme. So those businesses that are paying no business rates at the moment but are coming into business rates for the first time will have their increases capped at £800.
Alex Serval.
Thank you. First of all, I want to refer to a register of interest as the co-chair of the Music APPG. Live performance venues, vast majority have got alcohol licences. Many are pubs, but the vast majority are not. In my constituency, Leeds Arena is being dragged into the highest rate of business rates alongside some large multiple retailers. Without live performance venues, we won't have any future Ed Sheerans, any future Darcy Bustles, any future Idris Elbas or Simon Armitages, bringing in the export income that the Treasury Minister desperately needs. Is he considering live performance venues when he's thinking about the changes and not just pubs?
Minister.
My honourable friend is right to raise the importance of live performance venues. They not only support our economy directly through having people visit the venues and enjoy a good night out and a good performance, but Madam Deputy Speaker, they also support the local economy more broadly with people travelling to and from, choosing to go out for a meal before. And I and he do value the contribution that they make to our national life and to our economy.
Christine Jardine.
Thank you very much, Madam Deputy Speaker. Business rates in Scotland are of course devolved, but businesses, particularly in the hospitality, leisure and retail sectors, are not immune to the impact of these measures as they spread across the United Kingdom and undermine the economy. So can the Minister tell me if there has been any effort to sit down with the Scottish Government ministers to discuss a national strategy and how we can help businesses throughout the United Kingdom?
The honourable member is right, of course, that business rates is a policy that has devolved, and I am in conversation with the governments in Scotland and Wales about a number of changes that were announced at the budget to taxation policy, and I would be happy, of course, to continue those conversations. We do need to make sure that we that we are continuing to support these vital businesses up and down the country, and that is why the Chancellor set out the package of support that she did at the budget.
Julep Sadiq.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Over 20,000 people have rallied round to try and save the local cafes on Hampstead Heath, including the likes of James McAvoy and Benedict Cumberbatch. And I recently spoke to one of the owners, Alfonso, who brought home to me the importance of having local cafes which are affordable and accessible. Could I ask the Minister, as a fellow North London MP, is he going to join the campaign to save the local cafes on Hampstead Heath? And is he going to reassure my constituents that protecting small businesses is at the heart of government policy?
I thank my honourable friend for that question, and if I get time and the parking permits in Camden allow, I do like to drive down and have a walk in her constituency. I haven't yet been aware of this campaign, but I look forward to talking more with her about it. I'm sure on a personal level I will do all I can to get my tea and coffee from those relevant establishments.
Stuart Anderson.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I am speaking to loads of businesses across South Shropshire in the retail, hospitality and leisure sectors, and what they're telling me is the polar opposite of what the Minister is saying from the dispatch box there. And it shows that the government is completely detached from reality. There is a U-turn coming on this, but there are many businesses that are lying awake at night worrying how they're going to get through this. Can the government do it quickly?
Minister.
It is just worth pausing on the fact that yes, there are some businesses who are set to see increases in their bills, but over half of ratepayers will see their bills either flat or falling in the next year. In part, this is because of the support that the government has provided to businesses that was set out at the budget.
Mary Calify.
Madam Deputy Speaker, hospitality and leisure businesses in the City of Durham are incredibly concerned about their future. So if we are truly to level the playing field between the high street and online giants, does the Minister agree with me that it's time we show our much loved pubs, cafes, restaurants and hotels the same level of support that distribution warehouses, office blocks and supermarkets are receiving?
We are seeking to give even more support to those businesses than the very largest ones. Under previous governments, it was the case that there would have been the same tax rate for those businesses, but because of the changes that we put forward at the budget, the multiplier within business rates for the smallest businesses on high streets in Durham and across the country is 25% lower than the tax rate that is paid for by the largest businesses. This is the first significant fundamental reform to the underlying tax rates in business rate system in a very long time, Madam Deputy Speaker.
Sammy Wilson.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Businesses right across the United Kingdom are feeling, especially small businesses, whether it's in retail, hospitality or pubs. And that's in no small part to action of government, increased taxes, increased energy prices and increased regulation. And rates play a big part in that. Can the Minister assure us that if there is to be further additional money to give support, that will be ring-fenced and not given to the devolved administration in Northern Ireland where the Sinn Féin Minister has simply taken the money but spent it on something else?
Minister.
The Honourable Member raised the issue of small businesses and it is worth noting, Madam Deputy Speaker, that a third of properties pay no business rates at all as they receive 100% small business rates relief, and a further 85,000 benefit from reduced bills as this support tapers away.
Steve Witherden.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Hospitality is the UK's third largest employer. When the sector is hit, jobs are affected at scale. Pubs sit at the heart of the hospitality industry. In Montgomeryshire and Glyndŵr, we have 136 great pubs employing more than 1,100 people across the constituency, including the Eagles in Acrevaya, where my wife used to work behind the bar, and the Brilliant Hand in Llanarmon and Ceiriog. What steps is the Minister taking to support jobs in the hospitality sector?
I thank my honourable friend for his question. I must say I'm very jealous that he has over 100 pubs in his constituency. I only have 27 in mine, and I haven't made it round all of them yet. He is right to highlight the importance of employment and job opportunities that can be provided by the hospitality sector, with around 2 million people working in it. We know that the sector can be the first job for many people and help them get their foot on the career ladder and progress in their careers too. That is why the government provided significant support for hospitality and for businesses at the budget, and it's why I will continue to engage with my honourable friend and members on the issue of business rates and on other matters where we can support our high streets.
Adrian Ramsey.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Retail, hospitality and leisure businesses are at the heart of my constituency of Waveney Valley, and yet family-run village pubs such as the Blue Boar in Walsham Le Willows are facing significant increases in business rates from this April. So if the Minister does recognise that the current system is failing businesses, then when will he commit to meaningful reform and action, including giving local authorities greater powers to support socially and economically essential local businesses, as village pubs in rural areas undoubtedly are?
Minister.
I would be happy to talk further with the honourable member about any changes that we can make to give councils more powers in line with the issue that he raises. That isn't one that's crossed my desk before, but I would be happy to receive some correspondence on that topic.
Sarah Edwards.
2 weeks ago, I held a round table just for hospitality businesses in Tamworth to discuss the broken business rates system. And I wrote to the department with their preferences for support. The rates are crippling, and they have asked me to ask the Minister when reform is coming and how they will receive support in the interim of the reforms coming through, which is essential for my constituency and our businesses.
Minister.
I thank my honourable friend for her question and for the engagement that she has carried out with the businesses in her constituency as a strong representative of the businesses and the people in Tamworth. The government did set out some significant reforms at the budget in terms of lowering the tax rate that's paid by businesses on our high street. We lowered it by 5p compared to where it would have otherwise been. And, Madam Deputy Speaker, that means that the tax rate paid by businesses on our high street is a quarter lower than it is for the very largest businesses that can afford higher taxes. And that's why we rebalanced the system with £1 billion extra tax revenue from those largest businesses and transferred that to businesses on the high street in her constituency and across the country.
Mike Wood.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Now, the tables the Minister refers to shows that the median rateable value for pubs and wine bars is increasing by a third. Now, he visited the Prince of Wales to help them reopen last spring. Their rateable value is going up from £49,200 to £62,500, the pub in his constituency. So that's pushing them into the higher band and higher bills. So when we do have the inevitable U-turn, will the Minister make sure that it genuinely does deliver lower business rates, not just for the Prince of Wales in his constituency, but for all hospitality venues around the country?
I thank the honourable member for giving me a chance to talk about the Prince of Wales and my constituency. It is a fantastic pub, which I'm glad that me and colleagues in the local Barnet Council were able to save. I was there just a couple of weeks back after a canvassing session out on the doorsteps. He is right to point out that there are some pubs who are seeing increases in their rateable values as a result of the unwind from the pandemic, and that is precisely why we've come forward with the support that we have, capping the increases in business rates bills in this and in subsequent years. And in general, the point around pubs being at the heart of our communities is totally true. The Prince of Wales in East Barnet, the Griffin in Whetstone, I could go on, there's some fantastic pubs in Chipping Barnet, and I'm sure in his constituency too.
Simon Urfer.
Thank you. I'm just a little bit surprised by the mock rage coming from the benches opposite when actually over the last decade and a half absolutely thousands of pubs have closed. So can I also thank the Minister from the Stroud publicans to agree to review this system so that we can get a really practical solution for pubs? And can I confirm that all business rates, including those on the high streets, will be reviewed so we can have a proper level playing field with the out-of-town institutions? Thank you.
Minister.
It is really important that we level the playing field between the business rates paid by the high streets in Stroud and his constituency, which he is a strong and active representative of, and the business rates paid by the largest online retailers and those with warehouses and distribution centres. That's why at the budget we implemented those reforms to rebalance the system through a lower tax rate on those high street businesses and a higher one on those who can afford it. And I thank him for raising the point that members opposite want to keep dodging, which is that on their watch 7,000 pubs closed, across the country, hollowing out our communities and making our high streets and our places where we live less vibrant and less sociable.
David Reid.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I've heard from many struggling businesses across my constituency of Exmouth and Exeter East about the increasing pressures that they're facing. Now, just to give one example, under the government's original plan, a small independent shop in Exmouth would have seen rateable values rise by about 50%, wiping out the benefits of the lower small business multiplier, stripping it of eligibility for relief, and leaving it facing extra costs of around £600 a month. Now, does the Minister understand how damaging this is for business confidence and viability? And can you please set out a timeline for when these types of small businesses can expect to receive support?
Minister.
Madam Deputy Speaker, I think one of the challenges with the questions that I'm getting today from the members opposite is that they seem to be suggesting that the government shouldn't have gone ahead at all with the post-pandemic revaluations. They were revaluations that were set in train by the previous government, and I don't know about the honourable member, but I think that if there are businesses in his constituency or in my own that have seen a decrease in their rateable value since the pandemic for whatever reason, that it would be right for the system to be updated to reflect the post-pandemic values. That's what we've done, and he cites a particular example. Of course, there will be businesses that are seeing increases in their rateable values, and that's precisely why we have stepped in with the £4.3 billion of transitional support that the Chancellor announced at the budget last year.
Jonathan Davies.
Much, Madam Deputy Speaker. I welcome the assurance that half of businesses will see their business rates flat or falling, and that's even after the end of the COVID era support and the post-pandemic review initiated by the previous government. But I wonder if I could put on his radar research by the Music Venues Trust, which estimates 600 grassroots music venues may see quite significant rises, and that's probably because of the valuation. Significant areas are backstage, are dedicated to production or performance and can't be used by for revenue-raising purposes. So will you meet with me and representatives from the sector so that we can understand this better together?
Minister.
I thank him for raising this issue, and there's something else here too, which is that many grassroots music venues are valued as pubs. There are some intricacies and complexities within the business rate system that mean that it is important when we think of pubs to also think of the grassroots music venues up and down the country, and to provide support to them and to other businesses. That's why the government stepped in with the £4.3 billion of transitional protection, that over £2 billion of which will be in place this year, Madam Deputy Speaker.
Priti Patel.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. About the budget and the impact on their business rates bill. Last week, the Business Secretary said there was no way the government could have known about the impact of their decisions, but the Valuation Office then confirmed that they had told the government and ministers about the impact of their decisions, which I think the Minister has confirmed. He's also confirmed that that data was easily accessible. So why did this happen? Was it willful ignorance, or was it incompetence, or did they just go ahead anyway?
Minister.
I'm glad that the honourable member was able to ask the exact same question that the Shadow Chancellor did. I am not going to comment on the policy-making process in the run-up to the budget.
Jessica Tarl.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Most fair-minded businesses would recognise that COVID-era subsidies couldn't last forever, yet many in hospitality, including in my Bournemouth West constituency, are worried about what bill will come through for their rates in April. So can the Minister reassure these businesses and outline what transitional support we're putting in place in the short term and how we're reforming rates in the long term?
Minister.
I thank my honourable friend for her question and for her continued representation for the small businesses in her constituency in Bournemouth, where I know there is a vibrant and growing hospitality and leisure sector. We have implemented reforms to the system to rebalance business rates away from the high street and towards the online giants, and I look forward to continuing to engage with her and other members of Parliament on business rates and on other issues and other steps that this government can take to continue to support the high street and businesses in her constituency.
Greg Smith.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. This morning I met with Rowley May, the landlord of the Russell Arms pub in Butler's Cross. Members of the government may recognise that it's the closest pub to Chequers where they can drown their sorrows after an audience with the Prime Minister. That pub has seen a £17,500 business rates increase. I have heard similar horror stories from pubs like the Cock and Rabbit in the Lee and the Dinton Hermit in Ford and many others. Will the Minister at least accept that there is no more money to squeeze out of pubs that are absolutely on the brink of financial catastrophe under this government?
Minister.
This government does understand the pressures that hospitality businesses and pubs in particular are facing. One of those pressures that I've heard about very clearly is the fact that under the previous government, because they didn't invest in our energy security, because they didn't invest in making sure that businesses and families could have lower energy bills and certainty for their energy bills in the future, they saw their energy bills surge. In 2022, we saw inflation hit 11% under the previous government, and it's things like that that have made it difficult for small businesses up and down the country.
Aaron Paffey.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I think we all know that we are where we are precisely because of the disastrous legacy that we were left by the party opposite, who made unfunded promise after unfunded promise. So I do welcome the Minister's reassurance around transitional relief and the caps on those increases, but cafes and small businesses and hospitality in Southampton are not just concerned still about the future, they are concerned about the now. So what is the message that the Minister would give for them that this government is pro-business and does have their back?
I thank my honourable friend for his question, and when it comes to support for businesses, we are making sure that we bring back economic stability to this country with 6 interest rates cuts which reduce the cost of borrowing for businesses and for households. The economic stability that we provided have meant that wages have gone up faster in the first year of this government than they did in the whole first 10 years of the previous government. We are supporting people with the cost of living up and down the country, and we are providing stability in the corporation tax system for businesses, keeping it at the lowest rate in the G7 as a part of our commitment to our corporate tax roadmap, Madam Deputy Speaker.
With a final question, Shaka Adam.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. One of the worst things for business owners in my constituency of Leicester South is the unpredictability of running a business. They need to know, and it's simply killing them. They already have to deal with poor parking, a rise in antisocial behaviour, rise in national insurance contribution, rise in business wages costs, energy costs. Now they thought they were going to have a reduction in business rate, possibly they're going to have a rise in business rate. Can the Minister from the dispatch box alleviate their fears and put them out the misery? What is it going to be? Is it going to rise or is it going to stay the same?
Minister.
We do want to provide stability in our taxation system, Madam Deputy Speaker, and one of the things that the government is seeking to do in the coming years is to continue to have economic stability, something which was lacking for so long under the previous government. That's why we're focusing on getting government borrowing down in every year of the forecast, and it will fall faster in this country than in any other G7 economy. And when it comes to business rates, the reforms that we set out the budget will rebalance the system to provide a lower, permanently lower tax rate, the multiplier for those small businesses on the high street.
And that concludes the urgent question. We'll now give a few moments for the front benches to swap over before we start the next urgent question.
Thanks, Judith.
We'll now begin the urgent question. Shadow Foreign Secretary, Dame Priti Patel.
Deputy Speaker, to ask the Secretary of State for the FCDO if she'll make a statement on the British government's response to the brutal crackdown on the protests by the Iranian regime.
Minister.
Madam Deputy Speaker, the United Kingdom condemns, in the strongest of terms, the horrendous killing of Iranian protesters and the most brutal and bloody repression against public protest in Iran for at least 13 years. The Iranian authorities must immediately end the abhorrent killings and uphold the human rights and fundamental freedoms of Iran's citizens, including the rights to freedom of expression, to seek, receive and impart information, and the freedom of association and peaceful assembly, without fear of reprisal. The Iranian security forces must be held accountable for the deliberate use of violence that has claimed thousands of lives. On the 13th of January, the Foreign Secretary was clear in her statement to this House and delivered that message directly to the Iranian Foreign Minister. The Prime Minister has issued a joint statement alongside the Chancellor of Germany and the President of France. On the 15th of January, alongside our G7 partners, we strongly condemned Iran and announced our readiness to oppose additional restrictive measures if Iran continues to crack down on protests and dissent in violation of their international human rights obligations. We publicly called out Iran's crackdown at the UN Security Council meeting on the 15th of January, and we have now secured a special session of the Human Rights Council in Geneva, which will take place on the 23rd of January. On the 13th of January, I summoned the Iranian ambassador to underline the gravity of this moment and to call on Iran to answer for the horrific reports that we have heard. On the 1st of October, Madam Deputy Speaker, alongside our E3 partners France and Germany, the UK implemented snapback in full by reinstating the 6 previously terminated United Nations sanctions resolutions on Iran. We're going further by bringing forward legislation to implement more sectoral measures. We have already designated key players in Iran's oil, energy, nuclear and financial systems, and further measures will target finance, energy, transport and other significant industries. We will continue to work with the European Union and our other partners to explore what additional measures might be needed in response to these most recent developments.
Shadow Foreign Secretary.
Madam Deputy Speaker, since last week's statement, we're seeing more information about the horrific brutality the despotic regime in Tehran has inflicted and the bloodshed they are responsible for against their own citizens. Reports from medics in country are saying that the figure could be as high as 18,000 men, women and children dead, slaughtered in cold blood. Reports also suggest that up to 360,000 people could be injured, with those wounded left dying due to shortages of blood in hospital. This is an affront to humanity, and there must be accountability, including for the use of execution show trials. The regime is one of the most consistently vile and brutal in the world, and the government cannot stand by, and we need to understand what more they are doing in response to the latest barbaric revelations and actions. So what is the government's assessment of the numbers killed and injured and the brutal tactics used by the regime? What do they make of reports that the regime may have used chemical weapons in the recent attacks on its own civilians? What assessment has been undertaken of those imprisoned and being tortured? The principal victims of this vile regime are the Iranian people themselves. What did their ambassador say when he was summoned last week at the Foreign Office? And what did their foreign minister say when he was called by the Foreign Secretary? Once again, Madam Deputy Speaker, protesters in Iran seek freedom from tyranny, and the response from the West just has been shameful as Iranians have been slaughtered. Iran continues to pose a threat to us all and our interests with their sponsoring of terrorism and their nuclear program. The US State Department remarked on Saturday that it had heard reports that the Islamic Republic is preparing options to target American bases. Given that Britain has many joint military bases with the US in the region, what is being done to secure those assets? What is the latest assessment on Iran's nuclear enrichment program and ballistic missile capability? And what is being done to strip Iran of those weapons? And with phase 2 of the Gaza peace plan being implemented, what is being done to stop Iranians' sponsorship of Hamas and other terrorist groups undermining the efforts to secure peace in the region? This is not a time to be timid, as the response to these continued atrocities continues to be shamefully muted.
Minister.
Madam Deputy Speaker, the Right Honourable Lady asks important questions. Let me turn first off to the question of numbers. I do not want to give the House an artificial sense of precision when the internet remains restricted since the 8th of January. There clearly have been many deaths. We believe them to be in their thousands. We will not put a more precise figure on it at this time, because to do so would be at risk of misleading the House that we have a more precise picture than we do. That does not in any way take away from the strength of our condemnation. A variety of rationales have been provided by the Iranian regime, both in private and in public. They have claimed that they were responding to armed protesters. They have complained that others are seeking to interfere in their internal affairs. Let me be absolutely clear. There is no excuse for the scale of bloodshed that we have seen in relation to these protests. And it is not to seek to interfere in Iran's internal affairs to say that those protesters have rights, rights of assembly, rights to protest, and rights to have their internet turned back on.
Chair of the Select Committee, Emily Thornberry.
Thank you very much, Madam Deputy Speaker. I know that the Minister shares with me, and probably most of the House, a deep affection for the Iranian people, for their beautiful country and their extraordinary culture, which makes the killing that we have seen, the terrible violence that we have seen, even worse than we could possibly imagine. But the question I want to ask the Minister is this: can he give the House confidence that Britain and the international community will not now abandon the Iranian people out of geopolitical expediency?
Minister.
Madam Deputy Speaker, we will not. The Iranian people, as I said in my answer to the Shadow Foreign Secretary, have rights. They are rights that we hold dear in this place. They are rights we hold dear in this country, and we will continue to press these points with the Iranian regime.
Liberal Democrat spokesperson Callum Miller.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Since the Foreign Secretary's statement last week, Ayatollah Khamenei has confirmed the death of thousands of protesters. Yet he has again deflected responsibility for the brutal crackdown by his regime. The Foreign Secretary told the House last week that sanctions against the leaders of the regime and the proscription of the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps relied upon new legislation or instruments. We have waited too long for this. Will the Minister today give the House a date by which this will be introduced? Can the Minister give an update on internet connectivity? What is the UK doing with our partners to help restore internet access so that people in Iran can communicate and so that evidence can be gathered to hold the regime to account? And finally, what dialogue have ministers or officials had since last week about the Liberal Democrat proposal to pursue through the United Nations an International Criminal Court investigation into crimes against humanity perpetrated by the regime?
Minister.
Madam Deputy Speaker, I'm sure my Liberal Democrat colleague knows that the processes of the ICC are independent of the decisions of ministers here, and rightly so. Turning to his other questions, Madam Deputy Speaker, you will know better than anyone. I won't presume to dictate dates in which the House might pass legislation. I can confirm that we are progressing that legislation at pace. I'd just like to say a little bit about the impact of the sanctions that we have introduced, including most recently. I know the House is aware that we now have over 550 sanctions on Iran. Most recently, in October, we sanctioned the IRGC financier Ali Ansari. As an indication of the scale and the efficacy of our sanction regime, I'm pleased to confirm to the House that has led to the freezing of over £100 million worth in UK property. There is exposure from Iran to the UK, and we will take every step required.
Dan Carden.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. We must not be indifferent to the pleas of the Iranian people. What we're seeing is absolutely horrific, and I welcome sanctions, but we have to be honest. Sanctions are unlikely to change the behaviour of this brutal, murderous regime. The people of Iran are fighting for their freedom. It's possible that the US may still intervene. And can he reassure me that the UK government is thinking about how it can offer meaningful support to the people in Iran who are fighting for their freedom?
Madam Deputy Speaker, I've set out the position that we are taking in relation to these issues. I would not wish to give the impression to the House that those protesters are not at risk. Clearly they are, and we've seen the devastating consequences of regime behaviour in the most recent days. We will do everything that we can to ensure that the rights of those protesters are protected, and we're discussing closely with our allies what steps we can take.
Sir David Davies.
This is a despicable regime that goes in for state terrorism both at home and abroad. Its principal instrument of its terrorism abroad is the IRGC. This is now the 6th time I've called on Prime Ministers and Ministers. When are we going to proscribe the IRGC? The excuse historically given is we want to keep our embassy open. is now shut, demonstrating quite how futile this argument is. When are we going to proscribe this terrorist organisation?
Madam Deputy Speaker, I just want to be clear about the status of our embassy in Tehran. While it is true that we have withdrawn our staff, we have not closed our embassy. I expect that the embassy will be fully functional again soon, I hope, with some of this behind us. The questions around the IRGC, which I know the Right Honourable Gentleman has raised on a number of occasions, as have others in the House. We conducted the Jonathan Hall review. Jonathan Hall found that it is important that we have a tool that is focused on the particularities of the threats from Iran and the IRGC. That is a different threat from that which emanates from a simple terrorist group, if I may use that language. We're committed to taking forward those recommendations through the creation of a straight threats prescription-like tool, and we'll be coming back for parliamentary time to do that.
Dame Annalise Dodds.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Chillingly, the head of the Iranian judiciary has publicly called for the acceleration of executions of protesters. The killing in Iran is not stopping. Last week, when the Foreign Secretary talked of further sanctions and sectoral measures, she linked those to the nuclear industry. Can I please ask the Minister now to confirm that the UK will be seeking to go further than sanctions applied in relation to nuclear issues, to also seek to impose them on human rights grounds for those who have been linked with this brutal Iranian regime? Thank you.
Madam Deputy Speaker, I pay tribute to my right honourable friend who's got considerable experience in these matters. She is right to differentiate between the snapback-related sanctions, which are in progress and which the Shadow Foreign Secretary and I have corresponded on recently. We are also, I can confirm, separately considering human rights sanctions in relation to the abuses that we've seen.
Sir Gavin Williamson.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I think many of us will have read the reports in the Sunday Times yesterday, which detailed about how IRGC forces burnt alive so many, machine gunned down so many, and this isn't happening in just one town or one city, but right across Iran. We have very few levers in this country to make a difference, but one of them is to prescribe the IRGC. Please, Minister, just do it and make some small difference to send a clear message and make the Iranian people understand that we stand with them.
Madam Deputy, I don't have a great deal to add to the answer I've already given to the Right Honourable Gentleman opposite, but I would say we are under no illusions about the threat that the IRGC pose. The Right Honourable Gentleman talks about what they are doing in Iran. Nobody on this side of the House has lost track of the fact that there have also been more than 20 plots linked to Iran, linked to the IRGC in this country as well. That is why it's so important to us that we have a tool focused on the particularities of a state-based threat rather than treating them just as terrorists.
James Nash.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. The world has been appalled by the scenes of bloodshed that we have seen. Can I ask the Minister to outline what discussions the government is having with our G7 colleagues and European colleagues to make sure that we send out a united message of condemnation and a common demand for the rights of the Iranian people to be respected?
Minister.
I can confirm to the House that both the Foreign Secretary and I have been in extensive discussions over the last few days, and I expect those to continue this week, including at Davos.
Monica Harding.
Madam Deputy Speaker, the Iranian government is massacring civilians. Brave and young protesters are risking their lives for freedom and dignity against a violent and corrupt regime, and the Minister has spoken about the thousands that we fear have lost their lives, and the Times are reporting that up to 16,000 people may have died, and this in darkness, in an age when we can see news as it happens in the palm of our hands. We see nothing because of the internet crackdown. So what is the government doing to support internet access across Iran so that we can collect evidence to hold the perpetrators to account for this brutality?
Madam Deputy Speaker, the Honourable Lady asks important questions. We are working with our allies and we continue to press the Iranians, both in public and in private. They must restore internet access.
Jem Chionwara.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. The brutal regime in Iran has destroyed so many lives, and as a woman and as a feminist, I want to pay particular tribute to the brave women of Iran fighting for their freedom against such odds. They were promised support by President Trump. Can the Minister say what form that support may take and what involvement the UK may or may not have, and whether it is dependent on executions taking place? And on the technical front, can he write to me in my role as the chair of the Technology Select Committee and explain exactly how the Iranian regime was able to turn off access to the internet? Do they have some switch somewhere? And what, with our unique technical expertise, the UK is doing to address that?
I just want to join with the Honourable Lady in her comments about the bravery of the protesters. I'm sure we've all seen pictures of incredibly courageous protesters, often young women, showing defiance against a regime clearly, deeply intent on not only stopping the protests but silencing the voices and ensuring that nobody can see them. They are admirable people asserting their rights. It is clearly an inalienable right of the Iranian people to be able to protest, and that is what we want to see. I am happy to write to the Honourable Lady, though I will, for reasons she understands, not be able to delve too deeply into technical questions where they are sensitive.
David Reid.
Thank you. Does the Minister's Department assess that the Iranian regime can come back from this and go into a position of strength? And if so, does he assess that the sanctions packages that are being put forward now are enough to limit that from happening?
Minister.
Madam Speaker, I'm grateful for the opportunity to set out our position on the future of Iran. That is clearly a matter for the Iranian people. What we are pressing, what we are focused on, is the Iranian authorities ensuring their people can exercise their right to peaceful protest. What happens next is clearly a question for the Iranian people, not for London, not for Washington, but for the Iranian people themselves. That is a message we have delivered consistently to the Iranian regime. They are saying otherwise, publicly particularly, and I'm grateful for him giving me the opportunity to set that out from the dispatch box so clearly.
David Taylor.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. The Trump administration initially indicated that they would protect protesters when they came out, and came out they have done, droves have come out, but of course, as many others have indicated, there are thousands upon thousands who are now being killed. I know we worry about outside interference, but if you listen to a lot of these protesters, they are of course actually demanding some help from outside, and I don't want to be standing, I'm sure the rest of us don't want to be standing here in a few years' time where we look back and we think, what if, given that we've just gone through the Syria civil war where 500,000 died when a simple, well not simple, but a straightforward no-fly zone could have protected them from being killed. So could I urge ministers to keep absolutely everything on the table and to talk to partners about what possible ways we might be able to degrade the IRGC's abilities to be killing thousands of protesters, because I don't think it's going to stop.
Minister.
Madam Deputy Speaker, I'm grateful to my honourable friend for his continued commitment to these issues and indeed to those in Syria, which he's been engaged in for some time. As I said earlier, we are deeply concerned about the use of violence against protesters. We strongly condemn the killings of protesters, and they must be able to exercise their right to peaceful protest without fear of reprisal.
Alicia Kearns.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. There are reports the US is planning airstrikes or action in Iran. Following the US's last airstrikes in Iran, in response they fired rockets at Al Udeid Air Base in Qatar. Now that is co-located, that base, which is recently partly evacuated, with the prison in Qatar, where Matthew Pascoe is being detained. So can the government please advise the House what they are doing to make sure that Matthew Pascoe will be safe and any British nationals who may be in the nearby area, but also what is being done to ensure the safety of the Foreman's who continue to be held in Evin prison. And we know in the past that Iranians often will seek to overthrow the prisons rightly because of all those who are being held unjustly there.
Minister.
Madam Deputy Speaker, the Honourable Lady asked a series of important questions. On our general posture in the region, I don't want to comment in great detail about force protection questions in relation to our bases, though I'm sure she'll be aware of reports. We're working closely with our American counterparts on those questions. In relation to those detained, both the Foremans and others, I can confirm I've been in touch with the families. They're very much at the foremost of our minds. I must, however, draw the House and the public's attention to our travel advice. With the embassy withdrawn, there is a limit to what can be done. We cannot offer a full consular package of assistance in Iran. This is a fast-moving situation. We try to keep our travel advice as up-to-date as possible to reflect the very latest developments.
Ruth Cadbury.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. For almost 50 years, Iranians have found refuge in the UK, and many have made their homes in West London. One wrote to me saying that even after 20 years, Iran still runs through his veins. So could the Minister outline how the government is working with the Iranian diaspora in the UK to provide support and reassurance to them and also to their families still in Iran? Thank you. Minister.
Madam Deputy Speaker, I know how many families in the UK will feel very personally affected by developments in Iran. Of course, where there are consular-related questions, that is very much on our minds, both dual nationals and mono-nationals. In relation to wider community concerns, I'm afraid it's a question for MHCLG.
Vicky Slade.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. My British Iranian residents are deeply worried about their families, and the Minister has said that he hopes the embassy will reopen soon, but time isn't on the side of the Iranian people. So when is soon likely to be, and how quickly should we be expecting the prescription of the IRCG?
Minister.
Madam Deputy Speaker, I don't want to sound evasive either about the delicate decisions that we need to make about posture across the region or indeed about parliamentary time, but I'm afraid I'm not able to be drawn any further on either.
Rachel Blake.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. The last few weeks I've been inundated with communication from constituents who are part of the Iranian diaspora. It is very difficult to convey the extent of their agony about the lack of contact with their family and the fear that they feel for their loved ones. They have said to me they really want to see the strongest possible action on sanctions, and they want to see the fastest possible progress on prescribing the IRGC. I've listened carefully to what the Minister had to say about the particularities of state-backed terror. I would ask him now to set out in some more detail about why he believes that that will take some further time in order that we can actually tackle this vile state-backed terror that is affecting us all so much.
Minister.
Madam Deputy Speaker, I'm grateful to my honourable friend both for the question and I know the care she puts into these issues in her constituency. The Jonathan Hall review sets out some of the reasons why, in his view, a state-focused prescription-like tool is necessary. We accept those recommendations and we intend to legislate.
Stephen Flynn.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. There appears, and in fact there is, a shared horror across the chamber at the killing of protesters in Iran, just as there is a shared condemnation of this brutal regime, just as it appears that there is a shared view that the IRGC should be prescribed. Now, I've listened carefully to the Minister's answers, but I would gently suggest to him that he has a consensus, and he should use that consensus to prescribe the IRGC as soon as possible to send that clear message to the Iranian people that we stand with them.
Minister.
Madam Deputy Speaker, the honourable gentleman's points are well noted. Just for the clarity of the House, the legislation will be Home Office rather than Foreign Office legislation, but I'll certainly pass on the strength of his feeling to the Security Minister.
Alex Thurble.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. The Islamic Revolutionary Guard is undertaking and leading, actually, the brutal repression and murder of so many Iranians fighting for their freedom. But we know that the IRGC used 2 registered cryptocurrency exchanges to move approximately $1 billion since 2023, evading international sanctions. ZSX and ZCION routed funds between IRGC-controlled wallets, offshore intermediaries and Iranian crypto companies. What's the government doing to ensure that the IRGC cannot be funding this brutal crackdown through British-based companies?
Minister.
If my honourable friend writes to me, I'm happy to provide a more detailed answer in writing, but clearly our sanctions regime is wide-ranging and any British companies would need to be taking very careful attention to it. It sounds, on the face of it, like this would not be consistent with our arrangements, but please, if you write to me, then I'll respond.
Dr. Andrew Merriton.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. The Minister and I share a dubious distinction, that is, having summoned Iranian ambassadors, but does not agree with me whether it's Ambassador Mousavi or Ahmadinejad or Abbas Araghchi. It doesn't really matter because they're not the problem. The problem is the IRGC and its constituent parts. And will he accept that Jonathan Hall KC's review is not particularly controversial? He makes recommendations that would effectively get around the problem he has around prescription of state actors. There's cross-party agreement and agreement right across this House that would get this measure through in a day. And it's not as if we don't have enough time, as today's cancellation of business has shown.
Minister.
I'm wounded, Madam Deputy Speaker, for the comparison to be dubious. On time, I would gently say to my predecessor that there was rather a lot of time. Glad to see the Foreign Secretary in his place. There was rather a lot of time over the last 14 years to pass these things, but we've done the whole review and we're committed to implementing it.
Gareth Snell.
Thank you very much, Madam Deputy Speaker. Madam Deputy Speaker, the brutal regime in Iran is well known to be attacking its own people at home, but it also poses one of the largest credible threats to Jewish people here in the UK. And as the regime is currently blaming Israelis and Jews and Zionists for being responsible for the protests, can the Minister set out what discussions are happening across government to make sure that those proxies and agents that we know are in the UK are being monitored to make sure that the Jewish population in the UK don't feel the backlash as a result of the protests in Iran?
Minister.
I have said repeatedly in no uncertain terms, as has the Foreign Secretary, to our Iranian counterparts, that any threat in the UK to British people of any faith or denomination in any building, and indeed any other diplomatic premises in the UK, will be treated with the utmost seriousness. I've reiterated that strength of feeling to a range of representatives from the Jewish community in the UK, and I'm happy to reiterate it again from the dispatch box.
Sir Julian Lewis.
Yeah. Last Tuesday afternoon, President Trump took a short break from attacking America's NATO allies to write on Truth Social the following: Iranian patriots, keep protesting, take over your institutions, adding, help is on its way. Has the government the faintest idea of what he was talking about?
Minister.
Madam Deputy Speaker, US posture and policy towards Iran is, I'm afraid, a matter for the US government.
Dr. Peter Brinsley.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Many in this House are concerned about the malign influence of the Ayatollahs in our own country. There has been dreadful slaughter on the streets of Iran, but curiously little protest on the streets of Britain. What a contrast to the regular protests, sometimes intimidatory to local Jewish people, about the terrible war in Israel and Palestine. Could the aforementioned malign influence explain this?
Minister.
Madam Deputy Speaker, as the Home Secretary has said, we are aware of the very considerable concern that the ongoing protests have caused, particularly in places of real sensitivity outside synagogues, etc., and we're taking measures to address it.
Dr. Al Pinkerton.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. At the weekend, I visited several Iranian-owned businesses in my community to show my support and solidarity. And what those business owners told me was that they have relatives inside Iran who are going to extreme and increasingly extreme lengths in order to pick up information from the outside world due to the internet shutdowns, travelling close to the border with Iraq to pick up a mobile phone signal, or travelling across towns in order to connect to the kind of community-owned Starlink network. They expressed their frustration at the lack of activity as they see it from the British government, but also fears that the US government have marched protesters up to the top of the hill and have left them abandoned there. So can I ask the Minister, what coordination has he had with our, if I can still call them this, American allies, about their approach, and are we aligned with them on what we are doing in Iran?
Minister.
Madam Deputy Speaker, I understand the degree of anxiety within Iran. The restriction of the internet since the 8th of January is obviously a source of real concern, both to clearly Iranians in Iran, to those with family links there, and of course to those few but nonetheless profoundly affected British families who have loved ones detained who are also suffering from these restrictions. As I said earlier, clearly US policy and posture towards Iran is a matter for them, but we are in close consultations and discussions with our American and indeed other counterparts.
David Pinter.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker, and I share the Minister's horror at the brutal repression we have seen in Iran. Hendon is home to a large and vibrant Iranian community, and we are all horrified beyond words to see the savage, murderous violence being meted out by the Iranian regime against protesters. But is not the reality that, even when there aren't protests in the street, the regime is engaged in industrial levels of violence against its own people, with executions in Iran more than doubling in the last year alone? Does the Minister agree with me that we must keep up the pressure on the Iranian regime to end this barbarity once and for all and let the Iranian people exercise their fundamental rights?
I do. We've spoken in some detail about the current events in relation to the protesters, but I can also confirm to the House that we oppose any and all executions in Iran, as we do across the world.
Richard Tice.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. As thousands of brave Iranian protesters are slaughtered on the streets of Iran, I was humbled yesterday to speak in front of thousands of wonderful Iranians here in Whitehall. And they asked me to ask the government a simple question. How much more will it take this government to do the right thing and prescribe the terror group, the IRGC, and while they're at it, prescribe the Muslim Brotherhood?
Minister.
I'm grateful to my Lincolnshire colleague for the question. I don't have a great deal more to add on the IRGC discussions that we've already had this afternoon, where the Muslim Brotherhood is a term that covers a whole range of groups, including, of course, depending on how you want to consider it, Hamas itself. Where there is a violent threat to the UK, then we will, of course, take prescription action as necessary.
John Slinger.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker, and I thank the Minister for his statement, and I condemn the violent oppression of the Iranian people. Will the Minister join me in paying tribute to the work of the BBC World Service and the BBC Persian Service, both in getting free journalism and the truth into that country, and also getting their stories of bravery and courage and suffering out to the wider world?
Minister.
I will. BBC World Service and indeed BBC Persian are a lifeline, as so many other of the World Service channels are, and I pay tribute to the vital work that they do in reporting even amongst the most difficult circumstances.
Ben Opsijekte.
Deputy Speaker. If I may, I just wanted to return to the topic of Craig and Lindsay Foreman. The Minister will obviously be aware that they've now been in prison for over a year and are currently in Evin prison, regarded as the harshest prison in Iran. Since the outbreak of violence in Iran in recent weeks, can he just give us an update in the House as to their medical condition, and can he give us any assurances in terms of the current medical condition and the last time he was informed of their medical condition, whether they are currently still safe?
Minister.